Let's get started.
Welcome to the Financial Purpose Podcast. All opinions expressed by me or guests of the podcast are solely our own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Life Moves Wealth Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any investment decisions. Clients of Life Moves Wealth Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. Hello, welcome to episode 57 of the Financial Purpose Podcast. It's still crazy that I've done 57 episodes. It's still, I know it's not a large number, but it seems like a large number sometimes. But anyway, just kind of fresh off a trip. I just got back late last week from visiting clients down in the Southeast, Georgia and Florida, kind of touring around. And I love those trips, man. I love going to visit clients because oftentimes they're really just, hangouts. And so we're, just having good food and we're going to soccer games and we're just sitting on a patio, just really having good conversations, and it's a lot of fun. And it's kind of funny how, certain topics they just keep coming up, and it's something that a lot of people think about. And Friday morning, I was having casual coffee with a buddy of mine who's in town from the Midwest, and he's here for work. And so we got together and we're just, catching up. It's been probably about a year or so since we last sat down. And so we were talking about business and different businesses that maybe we'd want to, run or buy or, be part of or whatever. And one of the things we got on the topic is around, hey, at some point, retirement's going to come up, and then what would I do next? What would be the case? And inside of that question is always, inside of the thought of retirement is always the question of, should I do this thing, whatever this thing is, now? And usually it's should I travel now? Should I take the trip? Should we take the kids here? Should I do this? Should I invest in the business? Should I start the business? Should I leave my job? Should I, start my, side hustle, whatever? Should I take those risks now? Or should I do them later, maybe when the time is better? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the concept of now and the concept of later. And if we push them together, then it's now and later. And if you remember those candies, I remember those candies from being a kid, the ones where you put them in your mouth and it's going to break your teeth, but then it gets really soft like a taffy. I loved those things. I might actually go buy a pack of these after this episode. But anyway, now and later is what we're going to talk about. And here's why I think that this is interesting, because over the past couple of years, I've had a couple of people who were very close to me or in my immediate circle, and even a couple of clients, relationships where somebody has passed away. And unexpectedly, it's always unexpected. Not always unexpected, but it seems more and more people just, they depart. And that concept of now and later really has bugged me since, with every new person in my life. And it's funny, I was talking about this too, how we might just be getting to the age, I'm only 42, but still might be getting to the age where, because of proximity, we're just going to see more and more people. We're going to see them off from this life. And that's just kind of the natural, the circle of life or whatever it is. But that concept of now and later is a nagging thought, because what if there is no later? Or how do we know how much time we have until later becomes more appropriate, right? And so in the conversation with my buddy Friday morning, we were talking about that. And, he said, hey, we want to do this thing before the kids get too old. And but I'm thinking that maybe we should just save money for the next 10 years and then, plan that trip and do it later. And I was like, man, the problem with all of that is, yes, we need to save now, because retirement is still a thing, right? Retirement living is still a thing. Having cash flow and the ability to have money to use later in life when you're not earning as much or even earning at all. Maybe you're just down to taking in Social Security. Maybe you have a pension. Maybe you're doing a little bit of just odd jobs or consulting or something like that. But But it's nice to have a little bit of a nest egg set aside that you can draw from here and there, or every month, or periodically, or whatever you need. And so, yes, we want to make sure that we're saving for retirement. We're building assets that can be monetized and converted into streams of income. And that can be, 401ks, IRAs, it can be real estate, it can be a business, it can be any number of assets that can be converted to income. But we also are living now. And so it can be very important to enjoy some of what we are saving now, while we have the chance, while we're, still in close, planning things that are kind of in a close time frame. So that question, should I save now and enjoy life later in retirement? And we got off on the topic, and my buddy says, yeah, but the thing is, he's like, at my age, go 10 years out, I have the energy now to do these things. And the question of, hey, what if I don't live long enough to go enjoy these things when I'm in my 70s and I don't have to be working all the time? And is this the best time to do it? Or, should I start it, or should I wait till the kids are maybe, through high school or whatever, take these risks? And that's where the concept of and comes in, because I really don't think it's an or proposition anymore. It used to be, the question, should I save now for retirement, or should I try to also enjoy life now and save for retirement? And I've had people tell me point blank, one guy in particular a couple of years ago, he was like, look, man, I know what you do. I get it. I understand what you're trying to say. I appreciate it. But I'm young. I'm only going to be young once. Who knows if I'm going to get old? I'm going to enjoy every bit of every dollar that I earn right now, and I'm going to do it exactly the way that I want to. And if I get to be 40 or 50 or even 60, then I'll start thinking about retirement. Now, my brain fired off and was like, that's going to be way too late to really like build anything. But your life, live it your way. When we think about the and part of that, there's a couple of tips that I want to leave you. And sorry if this sounds kind of rambling. I really am spitballing. I have just a couple of, conversation points written down. And the word and in this proposition, I think, is very important. I think it's important to live life today. I think it's important to prepare for the eventual life that's going to happen in X number of years, depending on where you are in your life stage. And the way that you do that, I think, is important, because I don't think it's healthy to just completely disregard the future self that you're going to become. And I don't think it's healthy to completely disregard the current self that you are, only to benefit the future self. There has to be something in the middle, and that's the word and. So how I would think about it, and how I do think about it, and how I talk to clients about it is, first and foremost, there's a couple of areas where how and gets shaped, the word and, that I live life today and enjoy it, and I live life later and have resources available to enjoy it then as well. First thing that we have to look at is our current cash flow. If you've talked to me about cash flow, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, the old saying is cash is king, and I think that's wrong. I think cash flow is king, because cash can be incredibly inefficient by itself. It needs to be flowing in order to be effective and productive. And so cash flow is king. And if you don't have cash flow, you're not going to go anywhere, right? No cash flow, no go. I've said it before on the podcast that cash flow is like the blood in your veins. If it stops pumping, you drop. That's the way cash flow is in your personal expenses, your budget. It's certainly the way it works in your business. And so cash flow is the process of prioritizing non-discretionary items, things you absolutely have to pay for in order for things to continue to work and to stay open and keep the lights on and that kind of thing. And then you have discretionary spending, which also needs to be prioritized, and that's just all the things that you get to do because you have the cash flow to do them. In addition to cash flow, savings certainly is important, because I'm a big fan of having multiple buckets of where money gets collected for various purposes. You can think of this as an envelope exercise. You can think of it as having multiple accounts that are available and named for different things. Personally, I have accounts for things like the housing payment where money goes into and then comes out of on a monthly basis. That just helps moderate cash flow because that's a large payment. Even for the car payment for my wife, vacation spending, our retirement savings, our savings that goes into our trust every week, our cash flow or extra cash, I should say, savings that goes into the high yield account that gets used for various things. I'm a big fan of having those buckets. And what's important about those buckets, this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky, is once money leaves the primary operating account, right? If you're thinking about things from like a profit first standpoint, we would call that an operating account where the primary bills are paid and where the money is resourced from. When it leaves the operating account and goes into one of these side accounts for whatever its purpose is, that savings account or other checking account or however you have it designated, brokerage account, whatever it is, that's a future spending account, right? That money is only being collected there or saved there for a future expense. And so, for example, if you have a vacation account, money that goes in there it's a planned expense that one day you're going to pull it out, hopefully, and use it on vacation. Or if you have a Christmas club account, right, that some credit unions have. Or if you have a tax savings account. I have 2 tax savings accounts where one's earning a higher yield than the other, and one only lives in this place because of the way that the bank charges work and the multiple accounts and profit first and whatever. But that tax savings it's a later spend account, right? I'm saving today to pay the tax bill when it comes due next spring. So that savings, you really have to think of it as a planned expense and then give yourself permission to use it, because it is a little bit of a mindset shift. I almost said another word, a mind F word, right? For those of you who are want the more candid approach. When you have that money set aside and all of a sudden there's a couple $1,000s or several $1,000s or tens of thousands of dollars sitting in this account and then it's gone because you did that planned expense, that can really mess with your head. To see that amount of money or your net worth or your total account balance just drop, that can be kind of weird. And for some people, you have to visually see that the money's not gone. It's just shifting from this side of your balance sheet to this side, right? It's going from cash to asset or from cash to offset debt of that asset. And most of the time, it's just cash to asset. And then, the debt comes in and it offsets over there. You have to be able to see it that way. It's a planned future spending account. And then you want to think about cash as a utility. And this is where I think some people, especially like when you think about businesses or you think about nonprofits or civic organizations, I think this is where some people kind of get this mixed up, is you have to think about cash as a tool that has a utility, right? It can't just be something that gets collected and just hangs out in the cellar or under the mattress or whatever, because that's dead money, and dead money is useless. And so what would that cash earn sitting in a bank account and just growing however slowly it grows at that point, versus where could you better deploy that cash to get a higher return on what you're spending on or what you're putting into. And what I mean by that is, like a good example is if you have a couple $1,000s sitting in a high yield savings account and it's now earning, 5 or 5.1 or 5.2%. It's going to earn less later this week or after later this week when the Fed starts cutting interest rates. And I'm recording this on Monday, September 16th. Speaking of which, I realized a couple of podcasts ago that I referred to the current date as like December something, and I meant to say September, but I said December. I don't know if Josh caught that, but I caught it when I was listening to it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. I said December as the current date. But anyway, it's September 16th, Monday, and the Fed's going to cut rates this week. It's widely anticipated. I will be shocked if they don't, and then I will be absolutely certain they are clueless. But anyway, they're going to cut rates. Your cash is going to be earning less. So the question becomes, if you have a couple $1,000s in the bank and that's going to earn you, $60, $70, $90, $100 in 1 year of just sitting there. Because remember, your cash yield is an annual percentage of yield. And so will you get that money if that cash just sits in that bank account for the full year, which means that your cash sits for a full year and earns a little bit of money? Or is that money that you can pull and deploy it somewhere else? You can deploy it into a business, into the stock market, into a piece of real estate, into a marketing opportunity that's going to go bring back more dollars for your business, into something like your own education, into a new designation, into sponsoring a business conference or something. Like where can you put that money that looks like a cost but actually might bring back more dollars than what you're earning with it sitting in the bank account? You have to think about cash as that kind of a utility. Otherwise, you are literally sitting on it, hoping that it produces a golden egg, right? And the best way to really think about or give yourself permission to deploy cash in that way is to think about how much money you want to have sitting aside in a cash reserve, right? What is your target for that amount of money that you need to have sitting as an emergency fund? And I'm a big advocate for an emergency fund. You must have money sitting aside so that you can use other money to do other things, because the emergency is going to come. The air conditioner is going to fail. The refrigerator is going to stop getting cold. Just random things are going to happen in your business. You're going to have to replace something. You're going to have to change the tires on the car. You're going to have to go have your vehicles serviced, right? Things are going to happen. Having money set aside to cover those unplanned expenses gives you the permission and the ability to then use other money to do other things, as I said a few minutes ago. So have your cash reserve, have a target, have a number, and then give yourself the flexibility to move that number around based on what else is happening in life, or how stable your income is, or how much money you've earned on other investments. You can kind of move that around a little bit, but have it firm. Pick a number, right? Some people say, well, I'm just going to do 6 months of expenses, or I'm going to do 6 months of income. You can do it on either side, but what I find is that for a lot of people, 6 months of either income or 6 months of expenses is an awful lot of money to be sitting aside in a bank account. And not only is a lot of money once you actually achieve it, but it takes a long time to build up that amount of money. And so it might make sense, instead of saying, well, we spend an average of $7,000 or $8,000 or $12,000 per month. Well, now I need to have, $72,000 in the bank or $45,000 in the bank. It might take a long time to save up that amount of money. So maybe pick a number that makes sense, right? What's the average cost of an emergency that you've had over the past 2 or 3 years? How much did you have to spend unplanned? Maybe save that amount of money, right? So maybe now that number is 10,000 or 22,000 or 18,700, whatever the number is. Pick your number, have it as a target. Once you hit that target, every dollar past that needs to be deployed to go find other dollars to come back home to you, right? That's the whole point. So again, those 3 considerations when we're thinking about, and we want to think about cash flow, how we prioritize our discretionary and non-discretionary expenses. Second, we want to think about savings as planned expense accounts, right? Not just dead savings accounts. These are accounts that we are giving permission to be used for a specific purpose at a later time, planned spending. And then number 3, we have to think about cash as a utility. It's a tool. It's an employee. It's not something to collect and hold on to like precious. Cash is not precious. Cash, the longer we hold on to cash, the less value it has. So put it into the market, put it into some investment, put it into growing yourself, put it into growing your business, have it bring back more dollars. And then the final consideration, once we get past those 3 things, then is how does the use or the deployment of and today and tomorrow, the and part of that, how does that impact your financial planning considerations? And this is very important because, as I said earlier, it's not healthy to be completely disregarding your future self, and it's not healthy to disregard your current self. So and has to be in there. How does it impact your financial planning? And so that's going to look at things like, first, you're going to start with cash flow. And has to be applied because part of cash flow is things like, if I save X number of dollars or X percent to a retirement account or a company-sponsored 401k or something like that, how does that impact my cash flow? Once I know how it impacts my cash flow, where else can I deploy money that's left over? That question, that cash flow question, will then impact what happens with your taxes. It'll impact what happens with how much coverage you need to have for things like life, health, and disability, long-term care, that kind of thing. It's going to impact the balance of your assets because maybe you're going to buy things or maybe you're going to have money going out to service payments for debt on things like cars and houses and business loans and things like that. It's also going to impact your investment strategy because now you're going to be looking at, is all of my money going to a retirement plan, or is some of my money going to a brokerage account? Is some of my money sheltered in a trust? Is some of my money going to invest in these other opportunities? And once you do that, I already said it's going to impact tax planning, I think. And then, of course, all of that, whatever you're collecting, wherever money's going, however you're in assets, that's really going to impact your estate planning. And so now you start to see what I often say is that it's all financial spaghetti. It all touches, right? There's no financial decision as an adult that you can make that doesn't impact everything. And so how your financial planning is impacted by the word and can be assessed through any of those lenses. Any of those could be entry points. And usually for me, it comes into things like, hey, can we afford to buy this car? Or is it a good decision for us to buy this house? Or should we sell our current house when we buy the new one, or should we keep it as a rental? Or, hey, how much should I be contributing to my 401k? Or, hey, should I put my child on as a beneficiary of my bank account, or should I have them be a joint holder? Or, hey, I need to hire a new employee. Can my business really afford to do it? I think it can. I feel like it can. I feel like I need to. Or, hey, I'm thinking of changing my pricing model. How does this look for my profit and loss, right? So see how all of those things get connected and they all flow like tentacles to other places. That's all. Those are all financial planning questions, and they all involve the word and, because what you're saying or asking in those questions are, am I using my money the correct way? Am I using my money the best way for me today and tomorrow? And as a financial planner, I'm going to have a lot of insight into what makes sense. I'm going to tell you if you're considering a decision that's not going to work. I'm going to tell you if you're considering a decision that can be done a little bit differently. And I'm going to tell you if you're on the right track, and let's massage this a little bit better, make it a little bit sharper. And for the most part, people have a pretty good sense of what they need to do. And most of the time they're thinking about things in the right way that puts them and keeps them on track for really where they're trying to go to kind of, maximize that and proposition. Very rarely do I have people come to me where the ideas are just so bad or so poorly thought through that they don't work. That's very rare. And so most of the time it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's think through that a little more. Or, hey, yeah, we need to, I get it. We need to consider this, and this. Have you thought about this, or this? Or, hey, that might conflict with whatever else we have going on here. Or, you know what? Something's changed. This is a little bit of a different direction. Help me understand how we need to reset priorities. And that goes back to, if you listen to, I think it's episode 4, where I talk about writing a financial purpose statement. That's where that comes in. That financial purpose statement is when you want to do something that's counter to what you or what you may have prior set as a priority, a financial priority, a way that you want to use money, a wish for yourself, a future goal, a mission statement, that kind of thing. Well, now we have a way to test it, because I can look at that and say, this is a conflict. So, again, this may have been a little rambly. I don't want to belabor the point too much, but I do think the word "and" is the approach. I think it's the right way to think of it. I don't think "or" is correct, because it puts you into ultimatums, and usually financial ultimatums really trigger the fight or flight or freeze response. Usually people say fight or flight, but freeze is the most common one for a lot of people. And you become indecisive, and then nothing happens, and then you're sitting, and then things are happening around you. And now instead of you being in control, now things are happening to you rather than for you. And so, or is not the way, or is not the question. Sometimes it can be if there are options along what you want to do that benefits but and is the right way. So should I do this now or later? And is how I want to, as a financial planner, figure out how to go through that decision. So if you have questions about that, if you thought that I just rambled too much and you want to yell at me, drop a comment, send an email to info@lifemoveswealth.com. If you have a or question that you want help putting into an and perspective, I love those conversations. They're a lot of fun. I find it to be very, very helpful. I just had a client the other day asking about a car purchase, and it was, should we wait or should we do this now? And here's a great deal we found on this car. And it's kind of one of those special, once in a lifetime cars. And so question isn't, I don't think you can afford it. The question isn't, boy, you should wait until this next thing happens. It really is like, let's figure out how to make this work, because those deals don't last forever. And if it's the one, we got to go get it. We got to go figure it out, and we got to get enjoyment out of it, as long as everything else is in order. So, and is the way to go. That's all I've got for you. Like, subscribe, share, send an email, info@lifemoveswealth.com, and I'll catch you in the next episode. And until then, go be financially awesome. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To learn more about your financial purpose, visit lifemoveswealth.com.